What's going on, y'all? Welcome to the Monday night live stream. How's everybody doing? Yeah, all right. So, I have a very interesting story to tell y'all tonight. I usually don't get into like my personal anecdotes about my journey, but I think for tonight's topic, it's definitely worth it because this is something in particular that is one of the most important lessons that I've learned in my entire life. I can't stress enough. If you are struggling with health issues, you need to get outside ASAP. And you got to find the time to get that sun exposure. And I'm going to be going pretty deep into it because it's sun exposure is a big part of it, but it's not just the sun exposure, right? And it's not just getting out into nature, but it's also what you're getting away from by proxy. So these are some things that I'm going to be getting into tonight. I'm going to talk about how I stumbled across these things, kind of in an intuitive way, and then I later learned about scientifically and biochemically how these things work in particular. So these are very important lessons in my life that I learned, and they changed things for me in a very, very big way. All right. But before I start, let's get some ones in the chat if y'all hear me clearly here. I'm gonna give y'all some shout outs here. All right. Put a one in the chat if y'all hear me clearly. What's going on? Tyler T, good to see you in here. Absolutely. King, what's going on? Good to see you in here. There we go. We got the ones coming through. All right. Sharon, what's going on? Good to see you in here. Yes, ma'am. Idri, good to see you back in here. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. The matriarch of the tribe, Miss D, how you doing? Good to see you back on here. Yes, ma'am. Jalen. I'm going to answer questions at the end of the stream tonight. I'm going to get into that, right? I'm going to spend some time answering some questions and diving into some extra information that is not necessarily directly correlated to the topic tonight, but it's at the top of my mind. So I'm going to get into some of these things as well. Judith, good to see you in here. Welcome back to the stream. Absolutely. So everybody hears me clearly. Music isn't too loud, right? Nothing like that. Volume's good. Y'all hear me clearly. Put a W in the chat if everything is all set. And y'all ready for me to get into this tonight? I just finished my dinner. I got to finish eating a bit late. So now I'm having my tea, my nettle tea, in my big old cup. This has quickly become my favorite channel. I like that. That's some strong feedback. I appreciate that. I'm glad I can put out some good information, create a vibe for y'all. Speaking of vibes, that is going to be particularly relevant for tonight's topic. The wellness journey is a beautiful thing, y'all. And you won't believe how deep it goes. You will not believe how deep it goes. It's unbelievable. All right, y'all. So let me get into it. Now, y'all know I like to get pretty technical, but the top line thought is get outside now. ASAP, right? Now, of course, it's 8 o'clock at night, so maybe not, but in the morning in particular, preferably getting outside and getting into position before the sunrise. I have a history with anxiety, depression, chronic headaches, sinus infections, seasonal allergies to pollen, dust, mold, cats, dogs, any animals with fur, all types of stuff, right? I had a weight loss journey. I reached the top weight of 193 pounds, chronic joint pain, hips, knees hurting, ankles, feet, left foot in particular, bone spur in my neck, stiffness in the neck to the point where it was difficult, where looking this way versus looking this way, there was a noticeable difference in how tight my neck was, where it was a lot easier for me to look this way than it was to look this way, right? Neck was really tight. I even had like these random eczema breakouts. I would get it under my armpit on my right side. It was just under my armpit on my right side. I don't think I really had a breakout anywhere else on my body, just there. My eyes would hurt like crazy to the point where I felt like they were bulging out of my head. As far as the seasonal allergies are concerned, itchiness, puffiness, felt like I had gravel in my eyelids. I mean, wild stuff, right? So when spring came around, it was absolutely brutal. It was devastating. And then, of course, the battles with depression and anxiety, lack of motivation, loss of creative energy, all of this type of stuff, right? Went through some real big struggles in my life. There was a point in time in my life, though, where I went through this revolutionary period in my life, a total breakthrough. This was in between the years of 2014 and 2016. This was right before anybody knew about Tribe by Noir. Now, Tribe by Noir was a thing that was in the making starting at 2014, but it was just a thing I was working on in private. And that was around the time where I went plant-based. I went plant-based a little bit before then, right? So Tribe by Noir was like after the whole going plant-based thing. And interestingly enough, before Tribe by Noir was a thing, it was ATP by Noir. It was Athletic Training and Performance, ATP for short, by Noir. I went plant-based and I got more centered around ethics, psychology, healing, and philosophy. Whereas before, it was just about athletic training and performance, right? Coaching and getting strong and losing weight and all this type of stuff, right? Because I started off as a fitness coach before the whole nutrition thing and the health journey started. I went plant-based, whole food plant-based, really high carb strategy to the point where, I cut my dietary fats down to in between 12 and 15%. It was usually in between 13 and 15%. The most, if I would go beyond 15%, it would be around 17%. I was really strict about this. Protein intake was in between 80 grams of protein to 90, right? Didn't really breach any further than that. Now, before that methodology with plant-based, I started on the plant-based journey, the vegan journey, as an ethical journey. So it wasn't like a health-related thing. I experienced some horrors about animal agriculture, and it shook me to my core, and it was so repulsive. What I heard, not just what I saw, but what I heard, the sound of what those animals were going through was so horrid to me. It was so wretched to me. The sound was raw demonicness, right? Sadistic stuff. So I just went what people like to call cold turkey. I was just flat, boom, done right at that point. There was no weaning off of animal products, a slow transition. It was none of that. It was just straight, boom, switch, done. And I didn't get off to the greatest start. I didn't really understand much about how to eat plant-based. I cut out like nearly 90% of all the foods that I would mainly eat. Before I went plant-based, I was eating eggs in the morning. I was making double cheeseburgers. I was doing fried fish and all types of stuff, chicken, eating beef every day, putting cheese on. I would put cheese on everything, right? Um, Terrible diet. My diet was gross. Okay, I would I look back at how I used to eat, and I'm like, you see, that's why you had all them problems, right? And I had problems. Now, in particular, though, when I went through my phase of deep education and plant-based nutrition and things like this, right, the actual plant-based structure, familiarizing myself with the technicalities of it, um, that is where I came up with that whole food, high carb methodology. Now, struggling against, depression, anxiety, joint pain, sluggishness, seasonal allergies, just whooping my ass, right? I was also battling and dealing with the struggles of being in a bit of a toxic relationship, and things progressively got worse, right? Um, you know, she had some growing to do, and so did I. I am a very, very different person than I was back in that time period, right? And I have evolved leaps and bounds since then, right? So there was a lot of errors in my ways and things that I could have done better on my end, right? And it all relates to awareness, not just awareness of others, but self-awareness, which is one of the biggest things that I had to learn, is really practicing and committing to self-awareness, right? But one of the habits that I developed, the primary habit I developed, was spending a lot of time outside. Now, the reason that I was spending a lot of time outside was not because of health reasons, but I was spending a lot of time outside to get away from the woman I was in a toxic relationship with, to create space, to avoid arguments and confrontations. That was my way of avoiding confrontation. It was just being outside. She would spend most of her time inside. I would spend most of my time outside. Um, Now, this would start really early in the day because I would actually wake up early. Even if I went to bed late, I would wake up early and I would get outside. And it would still be kind of dark outside, and I would go for walks. And I would go for walks like 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, somewhere really early. And I would go for walks. And as I was deep into my walk, the sun would start to come up. And this was like a thing every day, where I would be out on the road walking or on the trail, wherever I was. And the sun would be rising as I'm into my walk, right? And I would walk in a way where the sun was in front of me, rising while I was on my walk. And this is like an everyday thing. I did this for years. I did this for years. And about like a year in, this is when I started to realize how much my health had improved. No more debilitating sinus infections, pain in my face, and all of this type of stuff. Seasonal allergies. My seasonal allergies were gone. I stopped having all the joint pain. My left foot wasn't hurting. My neck wasn't tight and hurting. My hips was fine. I could walk for hours. Got quite the tan. And all of the health issues that I had prior, a lot of it is due to my diet, but also due to me being outside a lot. And I know that it was due to me being outside a lot. And the reason why I know what the deal breaker was is because there was a point in time after that when I was no longer in that relationship, and I was living in Georgia at the time. And where I was beautiful, right? A lot of scenic areas and trails to walk around. I came back to New York, and a lot of those habits stopped. I got into an environment where I felt safe, no longer in that relationship, started sleeping in, stopped going out on the walks, that kind of thing. And there was a regression that would happen in my health. And even though I was on point with my diet for the most part, I started going in the wrong direction, but particularly a lot of the mental health issues came back. And in spite of being in a confrontational environment in a relationship that was a bit rough, I had a lot of creative energy in general, and I felt fine mentally. I was very motivated and whatnot. I was very mentally clear. I can study and get all of my work done, all types of stuff. I was able to, train clients at home and train clients in the gym and do my homework and the research and all of this type of stuff, right? Get certifications and all types of stuff, right? While building Tribe by Noir, the website, all of this type of stuff, create content, all this. I had all of this abundance of energy. And one thing that really threw me off is spending way too much time indoors in the house. And that's when I realized, you know what? The real deal breaker is not being outside enough. When I got back to my habits of being outdoors and spending a lot of my time outside, everything went back to being at its best, right? As far as my health is concerned, my mental clarity and everything like that. Feeling really good, focused and motivated and all this kind of stuff. Now, one really good habit I would do is I had a training partner, and we would get in the gym at like 5 o'clock, 5:30, somewhere around. It was like 5:30 because the gym would open at 5:30. So when I would leave the house to go to the gym, it would be nighttime. It was not daytime. The sun wouldn't come up until after we finished working out. So on my walk back from the gym, I would walk in the direction of the sunrise. And so basically getting back to those habits. Now, one interesting thing that I realized that I did was not only did I walk through the sunrise, but also the sunset. I would do both. At that time, I was able to train in the gym like 5 or 6 days a week, hard. I'm not going back to doing that, but I could do it, and I had phenomenal progress doing it. Phenomenal amounts of energy, mental focus, creative energy, just firing on all cylinders. What I realized, if I ever fell off of those habits of missing that sunrise or that sunset, there would be a diminishment in how my mind worked and my health in general. And I had to learn this lesson like 3 times because I kept slipping back into these habits of just being in front of screens all day, working on the laptop, working from home, and just spending way too much time indoors. And a lot of it too is caused by winter time. I noticed that I would slip into spending less time outside when it was winter because it's cold outside. It's very uncomfortable. The winters where I thrived the most were the winters where I would be outside regardless. And here's the interesting thing. In that relationship that was rocky and toxic, because I didn't learn my lesson the first time around with that either. So we split for a little while, and I came back. But when I came back, and of course things kind of deteriorated or whatever the case is in the relationship. Now I don't need to learn that lesson again. I've learned that lesson for the rest of my life. I'm a much different person now. So I don't have to keep getting kicked in the teeth repeatedly to learn my lesson, right? I had to be like 30 years old to realize this, but So in the wintertime, to avoid arguments in the wintertime, guess what I would do? Spend all my time outside. I would work out outside, go for walks outside, find all kind of trails outside. I'd be outside. And if I was freezing outside, I didn't care if it was raining, snowing. I'd be out there in the snow, in the rain, whatever, wind. Didn't matter what the weather was. I was out there, right? Um, thank God for my emotional immaturity, because I'm like, you know what? Rather than dealing with the conflict, um, or even putting myself in a position where I'd have to deal with a conflict, I'm just gonna be outside. So this is a lesson I learned. So now, present day, where my primary thing is reversing chronic illness. That's what a lot of people know me for, is reversing chronic illness through lifestyle adjustments in a raw or high raw vegan diet. So a lot of lessons that I've learned that were I learned these things kind of by accident. But now I know the technicalities of it. Because I'm like, well, why is that? Spending more time outside means more vitamin D exposure. It means more vitamin D synthesis, right? Because you get more sun exposure. Vitamin D, and it's called vitamin D, but interestingly enough, vitamin D is this complicated thing that's more like a steroid hormone, right? Think of it as a steroid. Vitamin D is one of your body's primary mechanisms for healing from illnesses. Vitamin D is one of the most important things that you need. In fact, you can't really heal from any chronic illness without it. If you have a chronic illness, you need vitamin D. You need it. So we may say, well, we could supplement with vitamin D. This is true, but supplementing with vitamin D isn't really the magic bullet. And the reason why is because you can take too much of the vitamin D and it can become toxic to your liver and kidneys. Or it could just not really help you much at all because of a conversion process that happens inside the body. So you can take vitamin D, but that vitamin D gets resynthesized into a different type of vitamin D. Right, so it's this vitamin D25 hydroxy, right? And it's this type of vitamin D that's synthesized inside your liver. Now, if that form, and this is regarded as a stable form of vitamin D, and if that conversion is low due to a compromised liver or kidneys, chronic inflammation in the body, magnesium deficiency, whatever the case is, if you have any of these issues, then supplementing with vitamin D may not really be anywhere near as effective as it needs to be. So you would actually have to supplement your vitamin D with sun exposure for vitamin D to correct that conversion process. To give you a perspective, you can synthesize in your body up to like 10 or 20,000 IUs of vitamin D with an hour of sun exposure. Right? So you can get really high dosages of vitamin D through sun exposure. So if you spend multiple hours outside, you're mega dosing the vitamin D in a very safe way. And this could also be a way to wean off of supplementing with vitamin D. All right. This is very important to know too. So like, for example, if we want to get, and I'm going to try not to get too technical, but there are scientific studies that shows that vitamin D actually reverses autoimmune disorders and prevents autoimmune disease. So if you're dealing with something like lupus, Hashimoto's, Graves' disease, Crohn's, colitis, things like this, right? Rheumatoid arthritis, MS. If these are issues that you're dealing with, it's very important to understand the significance of that sun exposure and that vitamin D conversion, right? So it matters what time of day you go outside, and your body is very sensitive to sun exposure. Your eyes can release signs, can signal signs to your brain to release certain chemicals and hormones in your brain, even if you're blind. Your eyes will pick up on sun exposure or the rays of the sun, even if you're blind. And this improves mood, reverses depression, anxiety, increases learning capability, all this kind of stuff, right? Vitamin D also improves your dopaminergic system, right? So basically, when I refer to that, what I'm referring to is dopamine, right? Dopamine is a hormone in your body, and dopamine allows you to be motivated to go and do things. Motivation comes primarily from the conceptualization in your brain that there's a reward for engaging in a particular activity, right? The way we conceptualize a reward in our mind, the thing that allows us to feel this sense of reward is dopamine. And the system that governs your dopamine sensitivity or insensitivity is your dopaminergic system, right? One of the things that really kills your dopamine sensitivity is vitamin D deficiency, right? Chronic lack of sun exposure. And that lack of sun exposure can increase your risk of cancer, even if your diet is solid and you exercise. You can still be a lot more susceptible to cancer as a result of the lack of this vitamin D or sun exposure. Right, so you can develop autoimmune disorders, and autoimmune disorders or autoimmune disease is a result of chronic perpetual inflammation that escalates and escalates and escalates to the point where your immune system becomes over responsive to inflammation or to oxidative stress. Oxidative stress is any kind of damage to your cells. Your body perceives that damage to the cells and your immune system responds. That response from your immune system is called inflammation, right? That really chronic and excessive inflammation that results in really steep acute side effects is what we call autoimmune disease, right? So a breakout of like rashes, hives, joint pains, muscle stiffness, things like this, right? Full body pain, aches and pains, and all types of stuff. These are autoimmune disease symptoms: excessive weight gain, excessive weight loss, etc. So you got to bring down the inflammation by bringing down the oxidative stress, and vitamin D plays a key role in that. Vitamin D is needed in order to synthesize your body's natural antioxidant called glutathione. You're in real big trouble if your glutathione is depleted, right? And people with depleted glutathione, usually a result of that is a lack of vitamin D. Right? So these are just very big reasons as to why that vitamin D or that sun exposure is so important. It literally acts as a steroid that bolsters the strength and integrity of your body. Your body is strengthened against disease primarily by protecting your DNA. So your DNA just perpetually makes copies of itself. But under a state of chronic inflammation, there's a breakdown of that DNA, and then your body becomes more susceptible to mutations, right? your body becomes more susceptible to developing weird growths, whether it be cysts, fibroids, tumors, which are basically like these disorganized clumps of cells that your body just keeps creating. Right? So these can be benign or malignant. The malignant ones are referred to as the mother cells. The benign ones are referred to as the daughter cells, right? So when you're talking about cancerous versus non-cancerous tumors or something like that, that's what they're referring to. Vitamin D helps to strengthen and protect the DNA, not strengthen the DNA, but protect the DNA, so we get more consistency and organization of cellular and tissue growth. So one of the primary drivers of something like cysts, for example, developing cysts on your ovaries, that is strongly related to vitamin D deficiency. Fibroids, again, vitamin D deficiency. Various different types of cancer, vitamin D deficiency, because you get this rapid growth of these cells, these disorganized cells that are just huge masses of tissue, benign or malignant. You reduce the inflammation, you protect the DNA, this cellular growth becomes organized into healthy tissues, and those growths then shrink over time. As they shrink over time, you then reverse your susceptibility to the development of cancer, enlarged fibroids, cysts, PCOS, Hashimoto's disease, etc. Right? So these are the technical, and I'm trying to explain a technical thing in very simple terms. I don't want to get too carried away with the jargon, right? Even when it comes to allergies, seasonal allergies, right? Reducing that chronic inflammation with that vitamin D also helps to eliminate allergies. And I've had people in the tribe come to me for personal help. Hey, you know, I'm having histamine issues, I'm having gut health issues, Crohn's, colitis, whatever the case is. And of course, diet is very important. Things like magnesium, malic acid are very beneficial. Increased zinc, omega-3 sources. There's all these different increased folate in the diet, water-rich foods, a reduction in saturated fat, a reduction in proteins, an increase in carbohydrates and hydration, refilling glycogen stores in your body, etc. All of that is very important. But the vitamin D synthesis or the sun exposure really brings it all together and helps to reverse these allergies, these allergic reactions, right? So that vitamin D synthesis, it ties all of that in together and allows the dietary choices to work, right, for you to get the desired result. My man John Green, what's going on? Good to see you back in here. Now, so I'm talking about getting outside and getting the benefits of that sun exposure, right? And you pretty much benefit in every aspect of your health through that sun exposure. Now, let's talk about what you get away from. Let's talk about that. There's a very big problem with being indoors over a very prolonged period of time. And the problem is the stagnation of energy indoors. When you're indoors and the windows are closed and you have a roof over your head, which is limiting your sun exposure, you don't have the negatively charged ion balance in your air that you should, right? So basically in your environment, your whole environment is saturated in energy. And there's this positive and negative energy balance inside, right? There's this polarity inside the environment, right? So you have negatively charged ions and you have positively charged ions, right? You have oxygen and then you have carbon dioxide. and it creates this wheel that rotates back and forth. And there's this inertia that we call frequency, right? Ideally, what we want is we want a high frequency environment. A high frequency implies an alkaline environment, right? We're talking about electrical energy. We're talking about, and not even just electrical energy, I guess we can call it that, but it's even a bit more than that, right? It's raw energy itself, thermogenic energy, electrical energy, chemical energy, it's all kinds of energy, right? Electricity is just what's conducted, right? Let me use an air filter as an example. There are devices called air purifiers. And an air purifier, what it does is it creates negatively charged ions in the air. It's these particles in the air that we call negatively charged ions, right? And what happens is as your air runs through this air purifier, it kicks out these negatively charged ions, right? When you breathe in this oxygen and you engage, your body engages in metabolic processes and kicks out carbon dioxide or positively charged ions. And that has to, normally that has to go out and it has to feed like plant life, for example. That plant life will absorb that carbon dioxide and kick out oxygen and negatively charged ions. And that's the cycle. Now, what happens when you spend a lot of time indoors and you're not surrounded by this plant life and there's not, the air is choked off, right? So it's not like a breeze. It's not, you're not integrated with the natural environment of the planet. You're in this bubble, right? You're in this congested bubble. And when the doors are closed, when the windows are closed, when there's a roof over your head with no entry of sunlight or extra air, or there's no soil in the environment that the oxygen of the air runs through and all of this type of stuff, there's no mineral or energy transfer, right? This ends up creating a low vibrational state. There is a reason why we hate being in corporate offices over a prolonged period of time, right? These cubicles, white walls, desks, this very fake, boxy, unnatural, prefab environment, right? Where you forget what the outside even smells like, right? If you've been in a corporate office for this building for a very prolonged period of time, think about how it feels to walk outside. It feels amazing. The air smells different. It feels different, right? As a matter of fact, I'm curious. Put a Y in the chat if y'all know what I'm talking about when you smell and feel the difference when you're outside. The moisture, the smell, the overall vibe, it's very different. It hits you immediately when you go outside. Right, put a Y in the chat if y'all know what I'm talking about. You feel that because that's what it feels like for you to be reintegrated back into a natural environment where the environment has uncongested energy flow. Right? There's a breeze, the air is moving. Right? You feel the frequency increase. It feels so good to be outside, especially when it's a breeze. Because even if the AC is on in the building, it's not hot, it's cool. It's a comfortable temperature, but there's no breeze or anything. The air is still and stagnant and congested. It doesn't feel great. There's something wrong with it. Even if you're by the window, you can see the light from the sun, but it doesn't feel like sun exposure. It doesn't feel like that. Even when the heat is hitting you through the window, you feel the heat, you see the light from the sun, but it doesn't feel like sun exposure. Something's off, right? When you're in your house, it's the same exact thing. The only difference is your house is comfortable. You regard it as home. You don't view your corporate office as home. But it's the same effect, but in your home, it's at a slower pace. It's much more intense in a corporate office because you're probably in a higher office. It's higher up off the ground, so you're further away from any kind of mineralized soil, and then the air is thinner the higher you go. So it's a weird atmosphere, right? It's like being in a plane. You're in this pressurized can in a plane, right? It's the same thing. It's a very weird feeling. So when you're home and you're in an office and all of this is destroying your health. So when I say get outside now, I mean, I put an emphasis on the words now. Because going from one congested indoor environment to another more extreme indoor congested environment, and then getting in your car and then your house, and from your house to your car and to your job, and then from your job to your house, back and forth, hop, 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 from one congested environment to another. It is bleeding you of your wellness. This can keep you from losing weight. It can keep you from reversing your chronic illnesses. It can keep you in a perpetual state of depression and anxiety, even if your diet is on point. Being in a congested, low vibrational environment, your diet can slow down the deterioration of your health, even improve your health and move you further away from deterioration. But it can be very slow, grinding. Right? It's very important to understand. I cannot stress this enough. Diet is very important, but it is not the catch-all. You need more than just a solid diet. I talk about diet a lot, but I'm being real tonight and really stressing this, because I even have people till this day where they're doing everything right except spending the necessary time outside. That is the one hindrance. In the winter time is particularly rough because people don't want to be out in the cold. But the cold air has its benefits because the cold air forces you to shiver, and the shiver forces mechanical energy that converts into electrical and thermogenic energy. And in order for that to happen, you're forced to breathe in deeper and breathe in more oxygen. So your parasympathetic nervous system forces you to alkalize your body through an increased intake of oxygen to produce your own thermogenesis, right? But you gotta be outside. When you're outside, you're away from toxic chemical substances, bleach, pine sol, Windex, well, all these different types of things that people, and you know, office buildings and things like that, they use all these cleaning chemicals on the windows, on the desks, on the surfaces, vacuuming carpets and all kinds of stuff, waxing the floors, right? There's air freshener spray. It's all these chemicals. You're saturated in all of these chemicals, just inhaling all these chemicals that you have no idea you're even inhaling all day. You don't know the damage that this does, right? We're not really thinking about it like that. The dust from sheetrock, right? Inhaling these particles. The dust that builds up in the corners of your home or the whatever building you're in. Mold, the mold that's accumulating in the HVAC system, producing mycotoxins that you're inhaling. And this is specifically devastating to your health as a woman who is sensitive to mold, right? I mean, this can significantly increase your hair you can have accelerated hair loss. You can have hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's, fibroids, PCOS, breast cancer, all this stuff can just get accelerated through that mold exposure, through the dust exposure. Going back to the air purifier thing, and they have this specifically in hospitals. And in hospitals they have these air purifiers where they have carbon filters, activated carbon inside that air purification system. And then along with it, there's something called a HEPA filter. And these two things work together to neutralize mold spores, mycotoxins, dust, all types of stuff. But in particular, there's something very insidious as a result of all the chemical soup that we use in our modern day, right? Called VOCs. What is that called? VOC as in volatile organic chemicals, I believe it's called. VOCs. And this stuff is floating around in your air when you spend long periods of time indoors. You're just absorbing this all the time. It can be damaging your lungs and your vascular system and your liver and your kidneys, just doing all kind of damage. Pancreas, everything. Just getting attacked all day. And this ramps up a degree of inflammation. And of course, depending on how much inflammation you've been experiencing over time, it accelerates gradually in this insidious way. I'm not trying to fearmonger and freak people out. I just really want to explain in great detail the importance of why you need to get out. Not getting outside just to get the sun exposure, but to get away from the toxic environment with the congested energy. You have these waves that move through your environment. And if you are in an enclosure, the waves will pass through you, bounce off the walls and the windows, and come back at you. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And you're sitting at a computer and the Wi-Fi waves are running through you, right? These electromagnetic frequencies, EMF for short. I'm not fear-mongering about cell phones and all this type of stuff. I'm not going to be one of these people, don't put a cell phone in your pocket because it's going to give you cancer, or don't talk on the phones and give you brain cancer. I don't want to go. Now, all these things are true to a degree. They are true to a degree, right? So the EMF thing, that is a very real thing. The radiation that moves through all of these electrical devices, these high frequency, these high voltage devices at all times. These waves are moving back and forth throughout your body at all times. And they do have a disruptive effect on your DNA. Some of us more than others. It's a time thing. It wears you down and damages your DNA over time. It's destabilizing in a very insidious way because it chips away at you over years, right? Scientific studies haven't really caught on to this because scientific studies are limited by time. So if you're exposed to, let's say, Wi-Fi and EMF waves and whatnot over a period of, like, let's say 16 weeks, it's not really going to show that much of a difference in between groups because this is a thing that really wears down on you over a period of years. To develop a chronic illness or a metabolic disorder, it typically takes 5 to 10 years. All right. So when you become an adult in your late 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, you've been developing these issues in your teenage years, in your 20s, specifically in your 20s, because things go sideways when you're in your 20s. And it usually starts because you get into college or you get an office job and you're working crazy hours. That's when the damage really kicks in and accelerates. It's always around like your 20s. You hit 20, you got to pay taxes, earn an income. You got to get a degree, go to college, job, whatever. You're at a desk all day, whatever the case is, and all this wear of tear, your professional life. 5, 10 years later, you're gaining excessive weight. You don't know why. You feel a breakdown of your mental health. Your kidneys aren't working the way that they should. Liver, your blood pressure's elevated. You have more headaches than normal. Your vision is a bit more blurry than normal. Things just start to really break down over time. This is why. When you get outside, all of these waves, these high voltage electrical devices and whatnot, all of this that's disrupting your physiology. When you get outside, you're not in such close proximity to it. the energy that passes through you just keeps going when you're outside. Just keeps going. Keeps going in that one direction perpetually. It doesn't bounce off and come back. Right? So this is the decongestion of that energetic flow. And as a result of the decongestion, you have a higher frequency, and this translates into higher energy when you're outside. Okay. Now, getting outside is important, but also where you go when you go outside is also important. So I don't think you should get outside and be walking along traffic, right? But getting outside, let's say in a hiking trail, that's far away from a highway or something, that's ideal. Getting out to the shore or an ocean, a big body of water. It's important to get around a big body of water because those big bodies of water are saturated in alkalizing minerals that get diffused into the air. So the waves moving in and out, they diffuse they diffuse the minerals into the air. That's why, like, if you go by the beach, you smell salt, right? You smell the minerals because you're smelling the minerals because you're actually you're inhaling them, right? So if you have if you're sick, you have a cold or something like that, you go out by the shore or the beach or something like that, and you breathe in deep. It helps to relieve, nasal congestion and all this kind of stuff. You can breathe in deeper and whatnot. It's because you're inhaling the minerals and those negatively charged ions, etc. Right? And then if you take your shoes off and you ground your feet, you further mineralize your body. Right? Especially if you walk with your feet in the water. Right? Yeah, the bottom of your feet is very porous. So you absorb a lot of energy and whatnot, and micronutrients from the bottom of your feet. And it goes up into your body. Right? So there's grounding. Grounding in soil is a particularly big deal because of all the copper and the iron and the nitrogen and whatnot in the soil. And it serves as an energy source that your body then absorbs. It's very good for your health. So your feet are like this two-way, it's like this two-way traffic thing where toxic substances and metabolites will leave your body through your feet, and important nutrients and energy can then enter in your feet at the same time. That's why the bottom of your feet is so nerve-rich and very sensitive. All right. Interestingly enough, this is also why if you grow plants in shallow soil high up off the ground, like let's say you're in an apartment building on the 3rd or 4th floor or something like that, it's difficult to grow those plants because they're not connected to the frequency and the copper and the nitrogen and whatnot in that soil. That soil it runs really deep into the base of the earth, right? And a lot of energy travels up through that, right? And into the plant. And if the soil is shallow, well, you get a reduced yield as far as the growth is concerned. And in a lot of ways, the same way plants feed off of the soil and the mineral richness and the energy frequency and the sun exposure, we do also in a very similar way. It's very healing for the plants. It's very healing for us. Mold toxicity has become a thing for me that I don't understand nearly as much as I should. But as I research it, I start to realize how important mold is to our environment. And it's this double-edged sword where mold essentially are mycotoxins and mycelium and all of this type of stuff, right? It's all fungi, right? And these fungi, they release these spores that move throughout the environment, and you can inhale them and all of that. And it can be medicinal, it can be poisonous, and all types of stuff. Mold in particular, it will feed on and break down damaged or dying organic material. Your bathroom now is relevant in this instance. So if your bathroom is constantly moist, and there's no window, no ceiling fan, there's no ventilation, your bathroom can accumulate mold as a result, and it's going to spread throughout your house, your living space, right? Now, if you are chronically inflamed, you have pre-existing health conditions, the dead and damaged cells in your body act as like a substance for mycotoxins or mold to latch onto and feed off of. And as they feed, they grow and they multiply inside your body and embed itself into the tissues of your body. And this can devastate your health in really serious ways. Right? Now, the ones who die from this the quickest are like household pets, like cats and dogs and stuff. Second after that, it's children. Third after that, it's women. And then the last victim is men. Right? And then, of course, elderly people are more vulnerable than everybody else except like infants. Right? So elderly people and infants are like the most at risk in this situation. Knowing this it makes ventilation even more important, right? And you can see mold. So you want to check around your living space for that mold, okay? If you see it and you want to clean it off of a surface or whatever, do not use these artificial cleaning products. Do not use bleach. Don't use these things, because that will push the mold further into the material to the point where now the mold will just grow on the other side of the wall and then embed itself into the insulation and everything else. And you'll have like a massive mold problem that you can't see because it's behind the wall. And then when it gets really bad, it'll come back through the wall again and start to show up on the surface of the wall where you can see it. Right, this stuff is very insidious, and it can spread into your HVAC system and whatnot to the point where you're breathing it in all the time. Getting outside is a way of getting away from this, but of course, when you come back home, you need to defend your home, right? So that's where you may want to get an air purifier with that that activated carbon filter and the HEPA filter. All right. I got one by a company called PuraCleanse. All right. And they have two, I think. One is called the Photon and one is called the Core. And it's a good idea to get the Core one because that one has like this UV technology thing that deactivates mold spores and mycotoxins. And it has the HEPA filter that neutralizes VOCs, right? That volatile what is it? Volatile oxygen chemicals or volatile organic chemicals? One of those. But VOCs, it's called, right? And it neutralizes that, right? As well as suck up both small particles and large particles of harmful substances in your air. Now, in addition to that, if you can maximize sun exposure in your living space, definitely do that. Definitely open up the windows, filter out the air, pull back the curtains, diffuse clove oil or cinnamon, right, into your environment, right? There are certain oils that kill mold, right? The top ones are like clove, tea tree, cinnamon. Like those are like the top ones that I know of. Lavender is another one. If you clean up mold, use vinegar and baking soda. You can also use something called thieves oil, which is a mixture of like cinnamon and clove, and there's like one or two other oils. So you can use thieves oil to clean it up as well. Ventilation is key, sun exposure is key, being vigilant is key, and managing the moisture levels in your environment. You can also leverage plants. There's certain plant species that can also protect your environment. So the plants will grow and they will absorb moisture in your environment. They will also filter. They're like a natural filtration system for your environment. The catch, though, the catch is you need the sunlight to facilitate that process, and you need healthy soil. You know you don't have healthy soil if the surface, like the topsoil, has like a whitish, flaky coating. That's mold. So if you see like a white film caked across the top of the soil, that's mold. All right. So you need fresh, nutrient dense, moist soil. The mold exists to break down and feed on dead things, rotted wood, dead leaves, dead cells, etc. And the moisture is the thing that they use to be hydrated so that they can be mobile and living, etc. All right. Sun exposure kills mold. Now, let's say you've had mold in your apartment and I just taught you something that's a revelation for you in your life. You're like, "Oh my God, this is why I'm like wheezing when I'm breathing, or I feel like I can't breathe at home, or I'm doing a lot of coughing and sneezing and and I'm having pulmonary issues or whatever the case is," right? If this is you and you're experiencing some of these things in your home, all of the things that I mentioned are important. And then also there are things that you may want to engage in that are antimicrobial, antiviral, and antifungal. This could be things like black seed oil, or oil of oregano, or oregano oil. These are probably like my top two. There's one that's particularly strong that's used for fighting things like infection for more acute situations, like garlic. Garlic is pretty strong, and it may feel like a bomb of acid going off in your gut. So you may want to use something a little bit less harsh, like oregano. Right? So you can do oil of oregano, you can do oregano tea, you can put fresh oregano in foods, right? But that oregano is a big deal. All right. And then you can also use a drop or two in clove tea, like essential oil of clove. You can put like a drop or two in your tea and drink that. Clove is very, very good to kill off those mycotoxins and whatnot. Having a diffuser, inhaling the fumes from the clove oil, that's very good. Also, if you're having these issues with your breathing, so you can diffuse that into the air, that's a big deal. So there's a lot of strategies and things that we can use, and I'm a big fan of the all of the above approach. The yes and, right? We want to leverage everything that we can, as long as the things that we're using are not conflicting with each other. And I don't think I've named anything in particular that's conflicting with each other. But the main takeaway here is get outside for the sunrise and the sunset. If you want to start with something small, something that's going to really, really change your life, it's that. Sunrise and sunset. Get outside. Anytime you got free, even if it's just to sit outside and read a book. And sit outside and read a book. Don't sit outside and be on your phone. Sit outside and read a book. The phone's killing your eyes. It's killing my eyes. This screen right now is obliterating my eyes. It's probably obliterating all of our eyes. So turn the brightness down, and you can read from raw pages of a book. Or just get outside and just meditate. Go outside for a walk. Right? Disconnect. Get by a big body of water, get out around the trees, a nice path, hiking trail, national park, and go for a hike. Go for camping trips. Camping is phenomenally beneficial to your health. All right. So camping, but get outside. Let's see. I think I got through all the points I wanted to make. I think I covered it all. I think we did it. Folks, hit the like button. Like the stream if you like the stream. Slam and drop kick that like button. Because I know this was fire tonight. This was a big deal. This was an important stream tonight. And if you need help, you need coaching support, you want to join my 12-week mentorship, you want to book a call with me, whatever the case may be, hit the link in the description box of this video, and that's where you can gain access to that. All right, so definitely hit the link in the description box of this video. And let's see what kind of questions we got here. My man, Jay Short, what's going on? Good to see you can make it tonight. Appreciate you. Big shout out to you, Cali girl. Yes, ma'am. Good to see you back in here. Welcome back to the stream. Loss of appetite issues and SIBO issues. How many hours a day are you spending outside? I think that you would also benefit from oil of oregano, right? Because you got a SIBO issue, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. That oregano oil would really help with that. Okay, oregano, that's a big one for you, right? Getting your gut under control there. Guillain-Barré syndrome, attack of the peripheral nerves. Another not well-known autoimmune disease. True, it's not that common. Left me paralyzed from the nose down. I had to get a plasma paresis for a week to correct it. That's deep. Well, knowing the information that you know now, definitely, you've come a long way. Definitely big shout out to you with that. So, you know, we got some more time. We got some more miles left to cover on the journey to wellness, but you're making good progress, though. So I love to see it. Do we have to be in direct sunlight? You don't have to be, but it would be a good idea to do so. I mean, on the cloudy days, you also benefit even on the cloudy days. I mean, you get less sun exposure, but every little bit of it counts. This is habit forming. So whether it's cloudy, partially cloudy, sunny, whatever the case is, we got to get out there. Right? Not just for the sun, but also the being in an environment where the energy isn't congested. All right, so yeah, definitely got to get more sun exposure. That's probably the thing with you too, is that you need, I mean, you're supplementing with the vitamin D, but it's got to be a both-and approach, especially for my folks, my African descendants, right? My black folks, my melanated peoples. Everything I just said tonight is specifically important for my melanated family. We are children of the sun. I did the cold turkey switch after watching Earthlings and Forks Over Knives. I was already only eating chicken, but it was easy to switch after seeing that movie. Super graphic, didn't seem natural. That stuff, look, the stuff that goes on with animal, I mean, it is demonic. It is sadistic animal agriculture. I was like, I don't want no parts of that. Wish to gain weight suffering with huge underweight issues, and wish to gain muscle mass for huge underweight issues. Yeah, I think, yeah, that if you're dealing with SIBO and gut health issues, I think it would be a very good idea to do the oregano oil, Even put oregano in your food, right? To eat oregano. Also, foods with malic acid. Malic acid is very important for intestinal health. Okay, so malic acid you can get from foods like apples, right? You can get it from squeezed lime, lemon juice, and things like that, right? But yeah, hit them apples, hit the berries. Those things are really important for your for your intestinal health, the health of your colon. All right, so that's a big deal. That malic acid, those malic acid rich foods. And then red lentil soup. So your diet doesn't have to be completely raw if you're trying to gain the weight. Red lentil soup, and that's when you can put things in there like garlic powder, which again is good for that SIBO. Garlic powder, onion powder, cayenne pepper. You can put oregano, basil, parsley, things like that. That will help you get your gut right. All right. All right, let's see. What about enhancing eye health issues? My go-to, that's a beta carotene thing. My go-to thing is going to be cantaloupe. Cantaloupe is very rich in beta carotene. Berries, blackberries, blueberries, raspberries, acai berries. These are also very good for eye health, specifically the acai berries. Right, those are really good for your eye health as well. Sweet potato. Sweet potato, that's another big one. And then, of course, copper and iron rich leafy greens. All right, let me scroll down here. Get to the rest of y'all questions here. Yeah. Tell them how they'll be saving money on your nutrition plan. True. Yeah, I save people money. I be cutting people's grocery budget by like 30-40%. That is true. That's right. A high raw diet is a lot cheaper than you may think. It saves you a lot of money, especially on the medical bills. Is sunscreen needed for us melanated folks? I don't really particularly mess with the sunscreen stuff. I don't do it. I'm more of a, you know, shea butter kind of person. Not really into the sunscreen. I'm not really into that. Is it true that minerals only come from soil? Yes. Without the soil, you have no minerals. That is true. When you say the soil, in particular, minerals come from the earth. Right? Because you can also get minerals from, you know, sand. You can get minerals from caves. So yeah, minerals come from the earth in general. Got on late. How much time do we need to spend outside per day? I would say at least an hour, but preferably, I mean, if you're really trying to heal, you may want to get upwards of 2 to 3 hours a day. I think that's a good goal for if you're trying to heal. Mr. Fresh, I'm in the sun now with my pets also. There you go. Wait a minute. What time of day is it by you? Is it? And you got cats and turtles? Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. All right, I think I covered everybody's questions here. Look at that. We are tight tonight on time. We did solid on time tonight with everything. Oh, here we go. How do you prepare the oregano oil for ingestion? You can do like a teaspoon straight up if you get oregano oil. Right, just put it right in, just Just swallow it straight up. Yeah. Uh, am I able to gain weight only Indian Asian raw fruits for muscle mass? Yeah, so I mean, I think that you should definitely diversify, right? But you gotta deal with that SIBO issue. So you really got to implement those those that bacterial overgrowth issue in your upper gut. You got to deal with that, right? So the things that I mentioned, ginger and turmeric also. So ginger turmeric tea as well also helps. So these are things that I mean you got to deal with that. I mean if you're trying to build muscle mass and gain weight and all of that, you got to deal with your gut health. That's it. You got to deal with that. Fermented foods. I mean whether it be the coconut yogurt, right, with your berries in there, your sauerkraut, kimchi, about 8 ounces a day or so of your fermented foods, right? Your fermented vegetables, got to deal with that. Got to get your gut health right. Cali time, 626, a dog and a turtle. There you go. What kind of turtle you got? Curious. You got like a red-eared slider or tortoise, box turtle? What you got? I love turtles. Turtles are like in my top 3 favorite animals. All right. So I'm not gonna hold y'all too long, right? But to close out, definitely, I'm just gonna repeat one more time. If y'all want to book a call with me, definitely hit the link in the description. We get a full hour to discuss whatever you want to talk about, whether it be building muscle, losing weight, reversing chronic illness, food prep, recipes, things like that. Also, here's the thing that I kind of want to start doing, okay? And y'all may like this because I used to do this all the time when I was live on TikTok, was eat on stream. So if y'all want me to bring my meals on stream and like eat on stream, let me let me know. I might do like a little mukbang stream or something like that. So yeah, definitely let me know. And you know, for those of you who haven't hit that like button yet, definitely hit the like button, like the stream if you like the stream, and share this with anybody you think would benefit from this information. Oh, there we go. Red-eared slider. Yeah, basking. They love their basking. The turtles in general, they just sit right out in the sun and just soak it up. They got the right idea. Turtles got the right idea. All right, y'all. Well, definitely thank you for coming through to the Monday night live stream. Much appreciated to y'all. We had a good turnout tonight. And I will be back on for next Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. Take care. And check this out before we go. We are out of here.